Hi guys. Alright, so I'm going to be preparing the second course for your Parcel 2. It's oven fries with sweet and smoky aioli. So first I'm just going to be working on some basic knife cuts, and then we'll be working on that aioli. So this dish is using a russet potato. Russet's a good potato for a fried potato. It can get nice and crispy on the outside and still retain that fluffy interior. Even though we're not deep frying these potatoes, this technique is hopefully going to showcase that you can still get some crispy edges and get some satisfaction from using a different technique than just submerging in fat. Okay, first things first, we're going to peel this potato down. You could choose to keep the peel on, but really with this technique, I think you want the actual potato insides to start to break down a little bit, and the peel will prevent that. So I have my scrap container. I'm going to just thoroughly peel. This is a rather large russet, and when it comes down to like doing your knife cuts, you know, I think you let the potato determine how big your fry is going to be, how long the fry is going to be. Doesn't make sense to cut your potato down and waste a small amount of fry if maybe the fry is going to be a little longer than the recipe is calling for. I would say I'd rather have more potatoes, right? So next I am going to take this guy and square him off. I always tell you that making sure that having flat sides is a lot easier when you're cutting something. So just gonna square that off, get some nice flat sides, have more like a rectangle. Probably won't go too aggressive because I do want to try and have as many potatoes as I can. So the recipe calls for 3/8 of an inch in thickness. And so I brought a ruler just because why not? It'll certainly make things a lot easier visualizing it. 1, 2, 3. So my thickness is right about there. So I would suggest doing that, or you could potentially use your knife blocks, but going 3/8 of an inch thickness. Think the width of 3 brunoise, cutting 3/8 of an inch planks first. And this guy I'll put to the side for a moment. And then I'm gonna make sure that it's 3/8 of an inch the other way as well. No one's gonna be coming and looking over my shoulder and yelling at me if they're not perfect, but what's gonna happen is they're not gonna cook as evenly, and so it is definitely in your best interest to have them all as uniform as possible. Oh, that last one I made, and that's why sliding is on the wrist a little bit. Take a little bit of that off. Okay. I'm gonna place these potatoes into a pot. I have 4 cups of water that I've already measured out, just so that my potatoes don't oxidize. I'm going back to my planks. And if you end up having some pieces, because you want to make best use of your ingredients, some pieces that are slightly smaller, just be conscious of that, pulling them out of this water a little bit faster if they're going to cook at different rates. Roll the dice a little bit. Okay. Next, I'm just going to work on, wipe down just because there is likely some starch from the potatoes, not necessarily something that I need to sanitize after, but just make sure I'm getting any residual starch off. Just going to also work on the beginning of my aioli. So I have a whole garlic clove, I'm gonna treat that garlic clove like an onion, and I'm gonna do some horizontal cuts and some vertical cuts just to get a nice fine dice going. And I'll run my knife back and forth so I have a nice mince. And then I want to take it one step further because I'm making a homemade mayonnaise and I don't want big chunky pieces of garlic in there. I want this garlic to work like an emulsifier, and the best way to get it to work like an emulsifier is if I turn it into a paste. So I'm going to take a little bit of coarse kosher salt that I sprinkle over the top. Now I'm going to take the edge of my knife and I'm going to push down with the edge of my knife, and using that kosher salt, I'm going to turn this minced garlic into a nice paste. It'll be way easier for me to make my aioli now. Work it back. Just kind of keep going back and forth. You can really start to see the oils coming out in the garlic now, which really releases the flavor. Okay. I'm just gonna take this garlic and put it right into the base of the bowl that we're gonna prepare the aioli in. I can make a basic aioli now. And we'll turn it into the sweet and smoky aioli. Okay, so step one, similar to a hollandaise. So I have that little bit of garlic in there. I'm gonna add 1 egg yolk and a little squeeze of lemon juice. Just like that hollandaise, I wanna incorporate some air into my egg yolk before I start emulsifying any fat into it. I want to try and bring it to that ribbon stage where it gets lighter in color, doubles in volume, and starts to fall off the whisk like a ribbon. It's a little trickier when you have that little bit of garlic in there, so getting it to fall off the whisk. But I can see that it's starting to lighten up already, which is good. I'm also going to add a touch of Dijon mustard. I'm not afraid of going a little heavy on the Dijon mustard, heavier than I would if I were making just a basic aioli, because there's Dijon in my sweet and smoky aioli. It's also going to help with my emulsion. Mustard is a natural emulsifier. At this point, I still haven't incorporated any fats other than the eggs, obviously, but I haven't started emulsifying in any fats. Okay, I think I'm almost at that point. I am going to just use a rubber spatula to kind of push the edges down, work the aioli together. It's just easier to start incorporating. I'm also going to take a towel because I'm going to start using one hand to drizzle oil in, and that towel works as a nest to kind of hold my bowl in place. Okay, start to incorporate some extra virgin olive oil in a steady stream while whisking. Should thicken up almost instantly. And the acid from the lemon juice, the acid from the Dijon mustard does cook the egg yolk. So you're not going to be ingesting raw egg yolk. And this thing is really starting to thicken up now, which is what we want. We want this aioli to be rather thick because it's a dipping sauce. And so I'm going to resist the urge to add any water yet. If I was making a hollandaise and it was getting to this thickness, I'd probably be adding water at this point because I know I need to incorporate more fat. There are moments where you may have to kind of stop what you're doing with your left or your non-dominant hand and really concentrate on whisking that fat in. You can see that it will want to break if you're not really forcing those two ingredients to come together. And so sometimes it does require a certain amount of muscle and attention. It's starting to get a nice thickness now, which is good because I will be adding quite a lot of thinner ingredients in order to season. So, finish with a little salt and lemon, and this is our basic aioli, but we're not doing a basic aioli. We're doing a sweet and a smoky aioli. So we're gonna add a few sweet smoky ingredients. So we have the Dijon mustard, but I'm gonna give it a taste and see if we don't want to add just a little bit more. And I'm going to be double dipping here, but that's just because I'm the one that's eating it, and so I can. If you were in a different setting, you'd be wanting to use a different spoon for every time that you taste. If we were in a restaurant setting, tasting spoons, one-time use only. All right, so I can taste the garlic, but I want a little bit more punch from that Dijon, so I'm going to add another tablespoon and a half. Whisk it in. Next, I want to add a little smoky, spicy. I have a chipotle pepper here, chipotle and adobo. I could take the pepper and chop it up really fine and put that in there. I could just take some of the juice. Chipotle is a really, really strong flavor, and I want to just kind of use it sparingly at first and see if I need to add more after. It's always good to add a little and little bits at a time and give it a taste. So I'm going to resist chopping that chipotle pepper up just yet. If you really love heat, go right ahead and chop that baby up, put it on in there. Okay. I think I'll likely chop some of it up. I just wanted to see how much just that juice would give off. Give it another taste. It's good. Needs a little more heat, so we will be adding a little bit more of this juice. Now I have some maple syrup. Chipotle and maple play real nice off one another. Oh! Got that out of there. Black pepper, and give it a taste. Okay, we got the sweetness, which is great. Starting to get that kick. We got a bite from the garlic. I do want a little bit more of that chipotle, and so what I'm gonna do, and I think it entirely depends, how much heat do you like? I like, today, medium heat. Sometimes I like a lot of heat, so because I like a medium heat today, I'm just gonna chop up some of this pepper. You want the skins, you want the seeds, you want it all. Okay, give it a taste. All right, we're right on. Let's give it a pause.